The last topic that we're going to look at in this unit is, here we can highlight this is in your notes, looking at things that involve a logarithmic scale. So you can highlight this as on page 433. We use a logarithmic scale when there's a huge difference from one thing to another, and we still want to measure it. So if we used regular numbers, the numbers would get too big. One of those things is an earthquake. And the magnitude of an earthquake, maybe you've heard this before, when the earthquake happens and they say it has a magnitude of 7, and you're like, well, the previous earthquake had a magnitude of 6. How much of a difference is it from 6 to 7? Well, in simple math, that's 1. Okay? But you might know about earthquakes, when you go up from a magnitude of 6 to a magnitude of 7, they say that that earthquake was 10 times more intense. And if you went from a 6 to an 8, and you go up 2, every time you go up 1, it's 10 times more intense. So in a 6th earthquake to a magnitude of 8 would be 100 times more intense, right? So if you're talking to someone, you're like, I understand what you're feeling. I was in an earthquake of 5, and you were in an earthquake of 8. Earthquakes of 5 don't even make the news. They're like, yeah, I was a little shook up, but not too bad, right? But earthquake of 8, that could like destroy this school. So it is, like 5 to an 8 would be 1,000 times more intense. Okay? Would you like that if I gave you a test that was 1,000 times more intense than somebody else's test? That would be like, what test level would you like? Everybody like 0. I just want the easy one. Okay. So we have our logarithmic scale, and with log equations, which we're going to do here in question 1, there is a nice, easy shortcut for earthquake equations that I'm going to show you that make them really quite easy. But first of all, we're going to work a little bit with the log formula. Again, in a question, you would be given the formula. And here they tell us the most intense earthquake ever had a magnitude of 9.5. And the question says, solve for the intensity. So if you want to get that I by itself, you're going to need to solve a log equation. How do we solve log equations? Well, once we have a single logarithm, which we do, we would use our definition to change this to exponential form. No base is written. That's a base of 10. Exponent is 9.5. Equal to I over S. And if I wanted to get I by itself, I would just have to multiply both sides by S. And so what this is saying is that that earthquake in Chile was 10 to the 9.5 times more intense than a standard earthquake. And a standard earthquake on the Richter scale is, I guess, sort of how the earth is moving all the time. We mostly can't feel it, okay? But the earth is moving. If they had a seismograph, it would be doing something right now, but very little. When an earthquake happens, I don't know, you've seen those needles maybe on movies and stuff, like crazy going up and down, then the earth is really moving. But a standard earthquake is next to nothing. Now, more typically, you will get questions like part B, which get you to compare two different earthquakes. We know from this question that the magnitude in Chile, which I'm going to do with a little c here, was 9.5. And from the question on the other side, it tells us that the magnitude of the earthquake in Haiti was 7. And this is the shortcut, which makes this really easy. And you see that the difference in the magnitudes is 2.5. That makes earthquake, and if you know that earthquakes, each time they go up by 1 is times by 10, that tells us the earthquake in Chile is 10 to the exponent of 2.5 times more intense. And that's how easy earthquake questions are. If you get other formulas like that, you're going to get one with the pH scale, one with decibels. You will have to do a little bit more work. But for earthquake questions, you can just figure out what the difference is and solve it that way. If you wanted to solve it with logarithms, this is what it would look like. It says it wants you to compare the intensities. So you would have to figure out the intensity of Chile and divide it by the intensity of Haiti. That's what comparing things means. We already figured out, I'm going to put a little C here, that the intensity of Chile was 10.95 times S. You could do the same math, and you would get the intensity of Haiti was 10 to the 7 times S. If you compared them and divided them, I would have 10 to the 9.5 times S divided by 10 to the 7 times S. Can you see that your S's would simplify? And what's your exponent law for dividing? Just subtracting. But if you know that you're just going to subtract in the end anyways, you may as well subtract in the beginning, saving yourself all that work with logarithms. Even on the provincial exam, they allowed the shortcut for earthquake questions. But you will get some questions that aren't earthquake questions. You can circle 4, 5, 9, 10, and 11.